financing. New loan from an outside lender was on page 2. Seller holds the paper or take over an existing loan are both here. And then the two pretty straightforward clauses at the bottom here: buyer's attorney approval, seller's attorney approval. These are pretty obvious what they are. Simply, if you want to sign the contract and say, however, I don't want it to be effective until my lawyer signs it, until my lawyer approves it, you check one of these. Lawyer has 5 days to approve. They're good clauses. They at least give you the benefit of both worlds, so to speak. If you want your lawyer to look at it, but it's Saturday afternoon and he ain't available, but you don't want to be bound by it if you've signed anything really stupid in here, whichever you are, buyer or seller, you put this, you initial this clause, insert this clause, the lawyer looks at it next week and says good or bad, and that's it. Okay, that's it for this form. Back at the end of that chapter, I want to just make a couple of comments and then we're done with contracts. I want to say one more time, the 3 biggies are get the parties right, get their signatures right, get the property description right. I'm going to tell you quickly where you go to get these things. For the name of the seller, you go to the property appraiser's website, but you don't trust it. You look, you got the street address of the property, you look up the property address, assessor's card, for lack of a better term, on this piece of property, and they're going to tell you there who the owner is. But that's not necessarily correct. That's what somebody typed. Down in the body of the property page, they're going to talk about prior sales, and they're going to give you links to the last deed of this piece of property. And it's going to show you the OR book and page, the recording book and page of the last deed that transferred this piece of property. Take a look at that deed. That's your seller. That deed to that last person, that's where you get the name of the seller. Don't take it from the property appraiser's website. They'll abbreviate it, they'll misspell it, they'll screw it up. Go to that deed. In addition, the property appraiser's website is going to have a shortened legal description of the property. Don't use it. Look at that same deed I just told you about. That's where you get the legal description of the property. You look at the deed, hopefully you can see it was prepared. You want a deed in a real transaction. If the last deed they show you is a quitclaim deed from mom to her son prepared by the son, don't use that one. There'll be 2 or 3 links to 2 or 3 deeds there. Go back to the last deed in a real sale transaction prepared by a lawyer or prepared by a title company. And from there get the name of your seller, and from there get the legal description, and use those in your contract. And you will have just nailed correctly 2 of the most important 3 things in the contract: of getting the party, getting the seller's name right, and getting the legal description right. Yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't the seller be whoever owns it in the most recent transaction? Like, even if, it's a trust or something like that. I know I was selling like a family condo, and the seller was, who it was transferred to in
Yes.
the last one.
Yes. What I was getting at was, sometimes you'll find home-prepared deeds where people hand-wrote deeds and recorded them as your last deed. What I'm saying is, don't use that one. Go back to the last real transaction. Now, forgive me. If the last real transaction was a deed to mom, and there is a deed there to son that's handwritten, I think if it were me, I'd probably put them both on the contract and make sure I wouldn't be real sure that second deed was good.
Yeah.
The problem also is the property appraiser's website is often wrong, and is often out of date, and is often not updated, and you just don't want to rely on that alone. You want to rely on the last recorded deed. Now, the third thing we talked about is getting the signatures right. If you want a binding contract, you gotta have the correct binding signature of the seller, because I'm saying in all this that you're the buyer. It helps if you're the seller too to have a binding signature of the buyer, but most often we're talking about enforcing these contracts against a seller. What I want to say to you now is, if you have an entity that is the seller, if you have individuals, well, it's pretty clear how you get them. You get them to sign their name the same way as typed there. And remember, if it's individuals, it might be homestead. If there's any chance it's homestead, if it's residential property, get the spouse to sign the contract whether or not she's entitled or he's entitled. If you have one name there, but it looks to you like that person is married and the property may be homestead, get the spouse. Because if you don't get the spouse, you're not going to be able to force that guy, that owner, to convey the property, because a deed without the spouse is no good, as we talked about. The complicated stuff is when you get an entity. You get a partnership, you get a corporation, you get a limited partnership, you get an LLC. You need to know who has the authority to sign that contract. You go to the Secretary of State's website, probably in Florida, maybe in Delaware. That last deed says XYZ Inc., an Arizona corporation. You go to the Secretary of State of Arizona's website. And there you'll find that every entity has to file every year a statement of who are their officers, or in the case of limited partnerships, who's their general partner, or in the case of an LLC, who's their member or managing member. And that's the person you want signing the contract. Insist on it. Don't take somebody's word, oh, he's out on a fishing trip right now, I got the authority to do this. No. Because, sure as shooting, that'll be the deal that you'll end up in court over. And if you don't have a binding contract, well, what's the point? Why do these things? Okay, that's my speech on the big three. Get them right. That's where you go to get the information to get them right. And the reason you won't do it is because you want your contract to be enforceable. And otherwise, you've wasted your time. The other matters in the contract pretty well take care of themselves. Pretty hard to screw up the price. You know what you want to pay, you know what you're willing to sell for. How long you're willing to wait, when the closing date is, what the inspection periods are. These are things that you can negotiate, but it's hard to screw them up and they're not going to make your contract unenforceable. These three will. And that's it. We're done with contracts, unless we have a question. Let's go to lunch. Let's be back from lunch, and we're going to start very promptly at 5 minutes to 2 on that clock. And go as far as we can until we have our midterm.
What? I'm telling you, it gets better. No, it really does, because I remember the first few weeks, I was like, well, this is awful. Nowadays, they're like, they're really not that good. I don't know.
I'm sorry? Did you have an 8 o'clock class too? Oh, you did, that's all. I know it's tough on you, tough on me too, to stand up here for 6 hours.
And this is so important, you know, like a week
I don't know how we're going to get through the budget. We probably aren't.
Okay.
And yet I feel like we're going too fast. But we have so much stuff to cover.
I know. This should be twofold, because you have to touch like general, and we're really interested a lot in real estate law, you know what I mean?
Well, you know, a lot of this stuff gets in other areas. It gets into torts, it gets into contracts, it gets into agency. We're going to talk about agency in the next chapter. Each of these is a whole separate class. It's it's too much to cover in too short a time. But you know, there's a lot of other important stuff in the program. I know you're learning other important stuff too. I just I couldn't go that long.
I did get the real estate license just to get access to information, not because I wanted to be like a real estate, you know.
Well, I'm sure-
I didn't wanna be asking my friends for, you know.
But I'm sure you learned a lot. I'm sure you learned a lot there.
Yes.
And
yes, we learned a
when we
lot.
talk about the next chapter, we're moving pretty fast, because half of the people in here have their real estate license. So I'm not gonna waste my time talking about stuff that people already know about.
Okay.
I hope, at least, we're gonna try not to anyway.
Well,
We'll
if
see.
they went like me to the 1 week class.
You bet, we'll see.
Did you turn